China isn't on the verge of collapse despite what you might have heard. Despite predictions of its imminent downfall, China's economy is proving more resilient than many experts anticipated. How does a country with significant challenges continue to thrive? Hang tight as we break down the real story behind China's economic endurance and its future prospects. Why hasn't the Chinese economy collapsed yet? Experts like Peter Zeihan, Chang, and much of the Western media have been predicting China's downfall for years. Despite this, the Chinese economy continues to grow, and it doesn't appear to be slowing. It's true that China's GDP growth isn't in the double digits anymore, but it's still doing well. Last year, China's GDP grew by 5.2%, compared to the US's 2.5%, and France and Germany had even slower growth at 0.87% and 0.31% respectively. Chang, who wrote The Coming Collapse of China in 2001, predicted that the Chinese government would cause the country's collapse by 2011. Clearly, that didn't happen. Now, Peter Zeihan has claimed that this will be the last decade for China, suggesting that the country has at most 10 years before its system collapses completely. So, what do these predictions really mean? It turns out that China has overstated its population numbers, inflating the count by over 100 million people, all of whom would have been born since the one-child policy was implemented. This is a situation where there are more people in their 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, and 20s. The one-child policy was introduced because there was concern that the birth rate wasn't dropping quickly enough as the country modernized, and there was fear that the younger generation would outpace the country's resources. In this video, we'll explore why China isn't likely to collapse anytime soon. We'll first dive into China's real estate market and then discuss the demographic crisis that Peter Zeihan frequently talks about. China, the world's second-largest economy, is struggling to gain momentum after years of COVID-19 lockdowns. Besides the real estate crisis affecting middle-class wealth, there's also a rising risk of unemployment. Here's a closer look. On January 29, 2024, a Hong Kong court ordered Evergrande Group, a major Chinese real estate developer founded in 1996, to start liquidating its assets. Evergrande took full advantage of China's real estate boom, quickly becoming the biggest developer globally. However, by 2024, it also became the most debt-ridden. This situation isn't unique to Evergrande. Over 50 other developers, including Country Garden, are also dealing with loan defaults. The ongoing housing crisis has notably impacted the previously stable Chinese economy, causing real estate prices to drop and slowing consumer spending. So, will this real estate crisis bring down China's economy? Historically, the real estate sector and related industries have contributed 25 to 30% of China's GDP, with nearly a quarter of the country's GDP growth coming from this sector. However, this doesn't necessarily mean the entire economy will collapse along with its property sector. First, it was the Chinese government that triggered the property bubble burst. China's vast population fueled a massive construction boom, leading developers and local governments to incur substantial debt. This boom continued until 2020, when Xi Jinping, the current chairman of the CCP, recognized the unsustainability of this growth and implemented the Three Red Lines policy. This policy capped the amount of money developers could borrow, initiating the real estate crisis. Second, since the government caused the property bubble to burst, they have introduced measures to stabilize the sector. Over 50 Chinese cities have revised their home purchase policies by easing restrictions and encouraging the exchange of urban residential properties. These steps are aimed at boosting home sales and fostering a healthier real estate market. Third, China's property sector shows strong resilience. For example, the average loan-to-value ratio for mortgages in major Chinese cities is around 40%. This means housing prices would need to drop by more than half to create negative equity, where the house's value is less than the loan amount. This scenario is unlikely. Additionally, China is shifting its economic focus to growing sectors like green energy and electric vehicles. In 2022, the real estate sector dragged down GDP growth by 3.7%, but the expansion of the green economy and digital economy has more than made up for this negative impact. This is one reason why China's economy isn't collapsing yet. As the property sector recovers, China is expected to see favorable economic growth prospects in the coming years. Is the world's most populous country facing a demographic crisis for the first time in 61 years? China's population has decreased. What's driving this decline, and what might reverse it? This is Inside Story. Peter Zeihan and various Western media sources suggest that China is dealing with a demographic time bomb. The country is experiencing low birth rates and an aging population, similar to Japan, but is facing these challenges before achieving high levels of wealth. China's birth rate is dropping faster than Japan's, exacerbated by the one-child policy introduced in 1980. Other factors contributing to this trend include increasing rates of non-marriage, delayed marriage, and declining female fertility in both China and Japan. Declining fertility rates have not only slowed population growth, but also significantly altered the age distribution. In China from 1980 to 2010, the proportion of children dropped from 36.1% to 18%, while the share of the elderly rose from 6.9% to 17.8%. The working-age population increased from 57% in 1980 to 69.2% in 2007, but then fell to 64.1% in 2020. This shift indicates that the demographic advantage that once supported economic growth has now become a demographic challenge. So, will China's economy decline because of its aging and shrinking population? Although China's labor force size plateaued in 2015 and has been slowly decreasing, its GDP has more than doubled since then. While productivity growth has slowed, the economy continues to advance. How is this possible? First, a shrinking population doesn't necessarily mean a shrinking economy. For instance, Bulgaria's population has been decreasing since 1989, partly due to a significant number of ethnic Turks migrating to Turkey. Since 1990, Bulgaria has lost about 2 million people, or roughly a quarter of its population. Despite this, Bulgaria's GDP has steadily increased. The same trend could apply to China. According to UN medium projections, China's population is expected to decrease from 1.425 billion in 2020 to 1.313 billion by 2050. China's share of the global population will drop from 22% in 1980 to 18% in 2020, and further to 14% in 2050. In contrast, India's share is projected to reach 17.7% by 2050. More importantly, the age distribution is shifting significantly. The proportion of those over 65 is projected to rise from 13% to 30%, while those under 20 will decrease from 24% to 15%, and those aged 20 to 64 will fall from 64% to 55%. By 2100, the over 65 age group will make up an astounding 41% of the population, potentially leading to a nation with a predominantly elderly population. So how can China address these population challenges? Economist Martin Wolf suggests two key strategies: internal migration and extending retirement ages. The decline in the labor force due to aging can be mitigated, at least over the next decade, by relocating workers from rural areas to cities and by raising the retirement age. China's urbanization rate is around 66.2%, compared to 80% in the US and 92% in Japan. This means there is significant potential for China to move more rural residents into urban areas, thus boosting labor force participation despite the shrinking population. Moreover, the current retirement ages in China are 60 for men, 55 for white-collar women, and 50 for women in factory jobs. Raising these ages could help sustain workforce participation. Additionally, advancements in industrial automation and robotics are addressing labor shortages and enhancing product quality and productivity. China leads the world in industrial robot usage, accounting for 52% of global installations in 2022, giving its domestic market a significant advantage. So, is China really on the brink of collapse? Western media often amplifies negative news about China, while analysts like Chang and Peter Zeihan highlight some of China's challenges. These issues don't spell certain doom. If international investors are optimistic about Japan, despite its severe demographic problems, why not be hopeful about China? Feel free to share your thoughts and perspectives in the comments section below. Don't forget to join the Revel Discovery community by hitting the subscribe button to stay updated on the latest insights into global economies and future trends. Dive into a world of engaging content and stay ahead of the curve.